All right, so thank you for coming. This is Catherine. Today we'll be talking about Brainfuse Job Now and Vet Now, and specifically their service for creating resumes. So to start us off, I'll just show you how to get there. This is the South San Francisco Public Library webpage, which is at ssf.net/library. If you are accessing Brainfuse via a different library, you may have to access it through that library's website. From my research, it looks like most of the libraries in the Peninsula Library System have access, but not all. Specifically, the ones that do not have access at all are Daly City, San Bruno, and Burlingame, as far as I can tell. So unfortunately, if you have your card through them, you won't be able to access it. The ones that do have it might have a slightly different access with different features enabled than South San Francisco does. I wasn't able to verify that because I don't have a card with them. But for sure, South San Francisco, San Mateo County, San Mateo City, Redwood City, and Menlo Park have access. If you are from a library that doesn't have access, you may be able to get a card with San Francisco Public Library, and they have Job Now. So how I would get to it from this page is I click on the online library button, which might take a moment, but it will load a new page with our online resources. And I'm going to give it a second to show on your end because it tends to be a bit of lag. And then I'll click the Career and Education button, which opens up this sort of expandable menu. And in the top right of the new section is Brainfuse Job Now and Vet Now. And when I click it, I actually already have it open, but it'll open this page. If you haven't logged in, it will ask you at that point to provide your library card number to gain access. And then for some of the services, you will need to create an account, which only requires an email address, and then you have to create a password and username. So it's pretty standard. But then once you have an account, you have access to the rest of the services. Now they have a lot going on, so I'm going to go over some of it really quickly. If you have any further questions, please feel free to put them either in the chat or in the Q&A box, and I will get to them in time. So they have resources to help you create your resume, such as templates and guides. And if I click that, some of these links will go outside of Brainfuse. The first three are, I think, just a download of a document that gives you some, that's a template for a resume, but a lot of the other ones are resources they've collected from elsewhere on the internet. They also have this e-parachute service, so you let them know your interests and skills, and it suggests possible careers for you. So if you're thinking of a career change, or if you're early enough in your education and career that that's a relevant question for you, that'll be one thing. They have live resume coaching. So you upload your resume and they go through it with you live. Alternately, if their schedule, and I believe it's in the afternoons and evenings up until 10 p.m. Pacific time, if their schedule does not work for you, then you can alternately submit your resume to the resume lab. So that has you either link it from a cloud service, or you can upload a file from your computer. And as you can see, they support quite a range of file types, including the ones that are created by Optimal Resume, which is that resume creation service we'll spend most of our time on. So for example, RTF is one of the formats that Optimal Resume does, which is right here in the list. And they also have PDF that you can export from Optimal Resume. And then you put some comments about what job you're applying for or the field that you're looking to work in. And they get back to you within 1 business day. So obviously submit it over the weekend, you might wait a bit longer, but if you submit it today, they should get back to you probably tomorrow. Let's see, they also have live interview coaching. So once you get that interview offer, then you can tell them what sort of interview that you have, and they'll ask you some questions and sort of evaluate your responses. You can do that, I believe, either in text or there is a video option if you do have a webcam. So that would enable you to, like they would assess, say, the fluidity of your speech, your mannerism, etc. in that case. But otherwise, if you use the text option, and obviously it's just your wording that's in question. Okay, there is some comment in the chat. Hello, Daniel. Nice to meet you. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. They have an interview tips page as well. So you can go through all that when you're at the stage of potentially having an interview. For veterans, they have some specific resources about getting assistance through Veterans Affairs, as well as other community resources oriented towards veterans. They also offer assistance in translating skills that one might have acquired through military service to terms that civilian recruiters will understand, because obviously one might have acquired some pretty useful skills and done some impressive things, but the military terms don't necessarily translate easily to the civilian world. They also have learning tools, particularly for job skills. And if I click over to the adult learners page from the top of the page here, you can see they have a high school equivalency prep, US citizenship prep, learning to use Microsoft Office, and various other resources. Okay, so a question, I'll go back over how you log in. Essentially, it'll ask you for your library card number. But if you go through South San Francisco, we have a custom link because not every library in Peninsula Library System has it. So we have a custom link that's only for South San Francisco cardholders. However, most libraries in Peninsula Library System have it. So you would look at your library card and what city it says. So let's say if you have a Redwood City card, it would say Redwood City Public Library probably, and it would have a card number starting in 29045. Or South San Francisco would start in 29048. And so depending on that card, you would go through the appropriate website and they will have the custom link that takes you to the correct Brainfuse page that will accept your card number. So specifically the libraries that have Brainfuse, and they may not have exactly the same resources. Some of them might have more of the tutoring stuff as opposed to the job stuff, but it's worth a look. But the ones who have it are South San Francisco, San Mateo County, San Mateo City, Redwood City, Menlo Park. Yeah, and that's it. The ones that I checked, and as far as I can tell, they do not have it, are Daly City, San Bruno, and Burlingame. However, San Francisco Public Library does offer to some extent cards to non-city residents, and so you might be able to get access through them because they do have it. I hope that answers your question. And then once you've actually reached the page, it will ask you to log in at a certain point. And that will, at that point, you just give it an email address, a username, and a password, and it'll let you create an account. So I think at this point I can move on to Optimal Resume. We can go back over the other services at any point if anyone is interested. But Optimal Resume is here when you scroll down on the home page. Alternately, it should be, yes, it's under the job tools. If you're looking at the top bar and you go to the third one and you hover, it'll open this menu and you can go to Optimal Resume. So you click that, and I won't show you the account creation page there because essentially it transfers your login information from Brainfuse, but it's still going to ask you for your full name and for your street address, your email, your telephone number. And the reason it does this is so that it can automatically add those into your resumes when you create them. And then once you've made your account there, it'll take you to this page, which is the document center, which is where basically all of the features can be found. And I'm mostly going to cover this top left option, which is the resume option, but they do have a letter option. So say if you want to edit a template of a cover letter or of a follow-up letter after an interview, etc., you can create a digital portfolio. Let's say if you're an artist or you have other projects that you would want to feature for potential recruiters. This is not going to be relevant in all fields, but for the fields that where that matters. They have a practice interview option. So this will be different from the Brainfuse one, and I can't tell you which one is better, but it's another option if you want further practice. And there's a website creation tool, which essentially will give you a very simple website to which you can add the resumes and the letters and portfolios and whatnot that you have created. So I'll just open up this test resume that I've already made. And you can see I've entered some nonsense for the contact information so that I'm not sharing my contact information with the entire internet. But when you make yours, you'll want to, since you're not screen sharing it on Zoom, you'll want to enter your actual information so the recruiters can get in contact with you. And this is one of the samples. I've edited it very little at this point. So you can see they have a lot of templates for different fields. And so I'll show you that in a second. But first, I'll just go through the controls that we have here. First off, when I mouse over a section of the resume, if I hold it there for a moment, hopefully you can see that it turns sort of yellow. And that indicates that I can click on it and I can edit the contents of this box. Or I can also remove it when I open it up. And if I hit cancel, then it'll go back to where it was. And so some of them have a little bit of a different format with a section name and so forth, but you can edit all of that. You know, if you want to call the section something else, if you want to edit the contents, and then it has various formatting options for the text, you know, the color, the style, etc. And a lot of these will have these example buttons, and it's a standardized example button, so it doesn't necessarily know what type of section you're in. Well, in this case, it does profile its summary, but in some cases it won't. And it'll give you some examples of what, you know, someone might put, but the examples here tend to be pretty limited. So you'll have to customize it quite a bit, but it gives you an idea of the type of style that someone might be looking for to see in that section, right? I'm going to hit cancel. The education and training section is also pretty self-explanatory. The experience section has a specific thing where you can, on the right under the sections area, it says add or delete employer or job. So I have the two that are already on there and I can delete them, or I can add an employer. And it has all of these options, like you can put a description of the company. I don't generally do that, but say if you were working for a lesser known organization, perhaps that might be relevant. You can put the job title, you can add links, the date range, etc., etc. So I'll put a cancel there. And you can also add sections here on the right. So I hit add section and it'll let you decide where on the list you want to add it, as well as how you want it formatted generally. You can also reorder the sections. So let's say if I wanted the education and training below the experience, which is one way of seeing resumes formatted, you can do that pretty easily here. And then if you hit apply, you'll notice that the education and training has in fact moved below the experience. And so the buttons on the right here will open more tips and examples, as well as these action verbs, which some employers might use a computerized system to go through resumes. And if they do, including the right keywords becomes more important. Otherwise, you just want it to be both accurate and, reasonably well written so that they can, see what your experience offers to the company. I'll also show you the resume samples at this point, because these are what you're going to use as a template when you create a new resume. You can also create a blank resume and just add everything manually. But if it so happens that one of the examples is pretty close to what you're going for, then going through this method might be pretty helpful. So let's say, for example, we look at the construction section. And once you select a section, it has this option to look at entry level, mid-career, or experienced positions. So if I click entry level, if I don't click any of them, it will just show me everything. And you can see there's various options here. So we have a highway maintenance worker, for example. And so you can see the basic format here. I'm not going to go through these individually in all that much detail because it'll be easier for you to see once you're logged in yourself due to the size of the text and whatnot. That's a little bit small. And then if you were to click select, it would have you use that as your template for a new resume. There's also this section instructions. We're back on the edit the resume screen here, section instructions, and it gives you some idea of what might be expected from each section of a resume. Now note that you don't have to include every single section of a resume. Generally, they will want to know about your relevant experience. They will want to know about your education and a little bit about yourself and your skills, but say if you don't have any notable honors and awards, or if you're in a field where there aren't really that many licenses and certifications that you would have to have, or if you don't have a military background, you don't have to necessarily include everything. And at the top here on the right, the other things you can do are change the style of the resume, or specifically of the header. And let me open that up. And if I were to, let's say I click this Carver, maybe that's what I'm already using. Let's click a different one. Oh no, I have to click through it. Okay, so I click Carver and it changes the format, or I click Franklin and it changes the format. And then I can do things like go in here and change the font. Like let's say if I want Trebuchet for my header rather than Arial, I can do that. I can change the style of the bullet points, of the lines. There's one line here just below the header, but you can actually add more lines if you want one directly under your name, or if you want one above the header. Those are all valid options as well. And you can change the line spacing. And there's also this specific format header button, which allows you to change the layout of the header, as well as, again, use a preset style, change the spacing, the lines, the bullet, the font, all pretty standard. The other options that you have are right here at the top. So you can rename the file. The clone option will make a copy that you can then edit, which is really great if you're applying to multiple jobs in, say, related but not identical fields. Let's say one of the job involves working with kids more and the other one involves working with adults more. Well, obviously, if you're working with kids, you would want to feature any experience and skills that you have that are relevant to that. And so you would create an alternate resume for that. This is also where you find the download option. And so you can download the Microsoft Word compatible format. This is an RTF file, that's a rich text file, which will be compatible with most desktop publishing softwares, including Microsoft Word, LibreOffice, and OpenOffice, and Pages should be able to open it, as well as probably other software I'm not thinking of. Oh yeah, you can also upload it to Google Documents from that format. So it's pretty flexible and a great one to have if you think that you might need to edit your document later. It's also good to always have a backup of everything. So even if you're printing it out directly from this page, I would recommend downloading either PDF or Microsoft Word version of it, you know, in case you need it again and maybe you don't have access to Brainfuse that day. Or maybe we don't keep Brainfuse together because this is funded by the state library. So if they decide it's going, then we have to decide if we want to pay into it instead. Another option you have is you can share a web version of the document using this link, and that's under the share button here. So then you can link it to social media sites or link it off of an email, etc. I haven't really seen recruiters that want this, but that might exist. So it's a nice option to have. There's also that print preview button, which will let you both download the PDF, but it will also let you print it directly from here if you have a computer attached to, or sorry, not a computer, a printer attached to your device. If you don't have a printer attached, I would advise downloading the PDF version because that's going to be a print-ready version that will maintain its formatting more reliably than the rich text format version. And then you take that file to wherever you're going to print it. And the library is offering printing again at both of our branches in South San Francisco. If you're going to another library, I don't know what their status is necessarily. So the other things you can do from here is you can add items to a to-do list. Say you want to remind yourself to, I don't know, add that one job that you haven't added yet, or update the description section because maybe you picked this sample resume and then the description was not quite right. It's definitely important to make sure you're not fudging anything on a resume because that's going to be a huge red flag for employers if they, you know, if they find out that some of the dates are off or something like that. So go through it carefully. You can also switch resumes from the top if you have multiple resumes already created. And the one other feature that I forgot to mention, but which is pretty important, is the spell check. So you can click that spell check and it'll highlight all of the words that seem a little bit dubious. Now, in this case, the words that are dubious are in fact correctly spelled, but they are technical words or words specific to a field, or they're proper nouns like this university here. But it's good to have that spell check just in case, even though it's not 100% reliable. Are there any questions about this resume creation section before I move along? All right, I'll take that as a no, but you can always ask me questions at the end as well. So I'll go back to the document center and just show you the letters and the website a little bit. So I've already created a test letter, so I'll open that up. And you can see I picked one here that didn't have one that was as relevant to library work, so I picked one that was for a teacher. And this one will have a few more things to edit because they want you to put the, who the recipient is, etc. But otherwise, it's pretty similar. You have similar formatting options. You can style the letter like so. You can spell check. You can show the history, so that'll show the past edits. I don't find that super useful, but your mileage may vary. And when you mouse over a section, it can change. You can change that section like so. And I'll show you the letter samples so you can see a little bit the type of letters that they offer. So that's under tools and then letter samples. And so, for instance, I can pick a thank you letter, and it gives me some options of, thank you for the interview types of letters. Or they have job posting letters. I saw your job posting. It looks really relevant to me, and here's why. And again, that has the option of filtering by entry level, mid-career, or experienced, but these are, unlike the resumes, they don't really have them for specific fields, more for the type of letter. And these are all pretty much for job hunting letters. I'd like to have an interview. I had an interview, and I want to remind you that it was a great interview, that sort of thing. So not as much to see here. So I'll move back to the document center. And I'm not going to play around with the portfolio one as much, but I'll show you what the job site looks like. So I've created a website already. And what it has you do is it has you choose a format. So a template. And so they have all these different options with different colors and different types of images and so forth. I can zoom into that and it'll show you what it really looks like. Oh yeah, so this is what it would look like with my documents in it. So we did not have a question, okay. And then I can also go and customize the sidebar. I can have it add my professional photo if I have one. I can add social media links, that sort of thing. I will unclick this though. If you're doing a whole website, you might want a photo, but just as an FYI, in case anyone has worked in other countries, in the US, they don't usually expect a photo on the resume. In fact, it's considered probably a bad idea unless you're in performing arts. So especially, theater, film, modeling, that sort of thing, where your appearance does matter to the job. Furthermore, there can be aspects that are expected in some countries, such as national origin or marital status, which are discouraged from including on US resumes. But you'll see that the templates don't include those things because this resource was, of course, meant for people working in the US. And then I can preview the site. And it looks like this. I've added my sample resume. I've added the letter, and it lets you download those. So you could add extra content and make it into a website. And now we're back where we were. And in order to actually have it go live, I would have to hit this activate website. It'll probably give me a unique URL at that point. All right, so I think that does it for the basic features of Optimal Resume. Once you've created your resume, just as a reminder, you can take that formatted resume to the resume lab, upload it from your computer, and they'll get back to you in a day or so about whether there's any aspects that need to be improved. If you're more comfortable working with someone live, then you can also use the live resume coaching. So you have quite a few options, and then move on to the interview coaching and so forth in the event that you get that interview that you were looking for. Thank you for coming. I'm going to stop recording and I'll take open questions now.